20 years after losing his daughter as a baby, father hears a voice saying, "Daddy, here I am." Kaylee and his wife Nora lost their newborn daughter at the hospital. Nora's grief was too heavy, and she died too, so Kaylee spent years visiting her grave until a young woman appeared one day with the most shocking story he had heard. Kaylee Rogers sat down on his wife Nora's grave and looked nearby where their daughter, Hope, had been buried. Their baby died in the hospital 20 years ago, and it was the worst time of their lives. 20 years ago at a hospital in Washington, D.C. "Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Rogers, it's a baby girl," the nurse informed them when Nora finally finished pushing their child into the world. Both of them cheered and cried over this auspicious news. They had been waiting for years to have a baby, and this child was their beautiful miracle. "Can I see her?" Nora asked breathlessly when the nurses were taking a bit too long to clean the baby up. "Of course, here you go." The nurse finally placed the baby in her arms, and she squirmed cutely, settling into her mother's bosom like the most natural thing in the world. Kaylee could barely contain his emotions as he watched his wife looking at their daughter. "Thank you, darling. Thank you so much for this miracle," he told her, but she shook her head. "What should we name her?" Kaylee asked, coming closer and hugging his wife tightly in his arms. "I know we thought of several names already, but I don't know if any of them fit anymore," Nora began, pursing her lips and smelling the top of the baby's head. "How about Hope?" Nora smiled at Kaylee and looked back at their kid. Unfortunately, the nurse returned and announced that they had to take the baby away for a few routine tests, and Nora needed to rest from her strenuous birth. Little did they know that they would never see their daughter again. Kaylee's tears fell as he looked at the graves of his lovely girls, remembering that time was too painful, but someone needed to keep their memory alive. "Hello," a young woman's voice appeared out of nowhere, and Kaylee looked up to see her. She had to be in her 20s and was beautiful, but something about her face shocked him. "Nora?" he asked in wonder, getting scared at the vision. "I've finally gone insane," he thought. "I'm not Nora. My name is Nicole, and I wanted to talk to you," the young woman said, and Kaylee frowned. "I believe you are my father." "Dad, I've finally found you," Nicole stated, making Kaylee stand up suddenly. "What?" 20 years ago, back at the hospital. "I'm so sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Rogers, but your baby went into an unexpected cardiac arrest. We did everything we could, but despite our best efforts, we couldn't revive her. I'm afraid she's gone," the neonatal doctor revealed. Nora looked at Kaylee with the most unfathomable expression. They'd been so happy only a few hours ago, and now their whole world shattered into pieces with just a few words. How could that happen? The news of their daughter's passing was also so unexpected because no one had indicated anything was wrong when she was born. But they didn't question the doctor. They took his word at face value and wallowed in their pain. They should have questioned everything that day. "It's the truth," Nicole continued. "I'm your daughter. Well, at least that's my theory." She was right. She looked like a carbon copy of his late wife. But that had to be a coincidence. "Maybe you're a distant relative or something," Kaylee hedged, thinking that the woman had to be a long-lost cousin or anyone else besides his dead daughter. "I don't understand what you're saying. You think you were switched at birth?" Kaylee asked, perplexed by the young woman's words. "That can't be true." "I'm 98% sure of it. I'm almost sure that my parents' real daughter was born sick and they switched us. I'm even more certain of it now that I see you, because I may look like the woman in the picture, but my eyes are clearly yours," Nicole said. "Isn't that a crime? No doctor would do that," Kaylee added, still not daring to hope for something that miraculous again. "Her name was Hope, Nora, and I had horrible time getting pregnant," Kaylee began, stirring the conversation away from complicated investigations and DNA testing. "I'm so sorry you went through that," Nicole sniffed, feeling empathy for the older man's pain. "My wife died of sheer grief 2 years later. She couldn't deal with the loss," Kaylee continued. "And now you're telling me that 20 years of pain have been for nothing? Your Hope?" "Okay, let's do the test," Kaylee stated, not knowing if it was the right idea. If this girl was wrong, then his hopes would be dashed from his grasp once again. 18 years ago, at Kaylee and Nora's house. For many months after Nora's death, Kaylee thought about doing something drastic to end his life too, but something in him simply couldn't do it. His soul wanted to keep living, even if it was an empty existence where he worked and visited their graves constantly. But maybe a part of him knew the truth that he would discover many years later. So this wasn't just for them. No one knew how many babies had been exchanged, and Kaylee felt better knowing that they could help the officers because this was a horrible situation. Finally, the test came out. Okay, here we go, Nicole smiled at Kaylee before opening the envelope and reading it. Oh my goodness, it's true. We're 99.9% related. Dad, I did find you, finally. Kaylee grabbed the papers from her hands and read them too. His tears escaped without his knowledge, and Nicole was crying too. My dear Hope, Kaylee marveled through the tears, come here. He hugged his daughter tightly for the first time since her birth, and it felt right, like coming home. Nicole cried on his shoulder and let out all her pain too. In the meantime, Kaylee and Nicole got to know each other. They visited Nora's grave, and the young woman had a lot to say to the mother she never knew. Kaylee also lamented the loss of the poor baby they buried next to her. She was the real Nicole.